All right, so here we go. I will share my screen with you so that you can see the presentation and we'll get started. So if you are watching this as a recording, welcome to you. I will be going through some of the basics around doTERRA that you may or may not know yet. So if you're already building the business, you might know some of it. If you are brand new, then all of this is new to you. And maybe you'll know about half of it. So for me, it took a while to actually get to know this company and to really catch the full vision of doTERRA, even though I was already embracing the opportunity and I had already started sharing the oils. So let's jump right in. Here we go. So first question would be, why should we consider partnering with doTERRA? And this page is taken from the build guide, which you might already have. If not, you can look it up online. It's a really brilliant guide that takes us through the opportunity. Firstly, if you're already using the oils, then you know that we have the highest quality available. But on top of that, doTERRA is the market leader in essential oils. And I just had a little call with someone yesterday, and it's actually a pharmacy. How cool is that? My local pharmacy is going to start stocking the oils. So if that's not a sign that things are changing, I don't know what is. And I just rang them up and I shared with them that I'm partnering with doTERRA, the market leader in essential oils. And I love that we can say that as wellness advocates, because we are partnered with the market leader in essential oils. We call this the Doterra Difference because we have a 65% retention rate. And this is record breaking for the network marketing and the direct selling industry. Usually retention rates are maximum 12%. The reason why we have such a high retention rate is because the product just works, and people who get educated correctly tend to repurchase. Most other direct selling companies lead with the opportunity. There's often a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. There's a lot of talk about the money, the cars, the houses, the boats, and so on and so forth. Whenever you go to a doTERRA event, none of that happens, even though you might be talking with people who are earning a lot of money, and I personally have met a lot of them in person. There is never a boasting attitude about money. You can usually tell that they are living a very comfortable life, but they will never try and impress you with how much money they're making, which I think is a really beautiful thing. Personally, I think it's a bit ugly, if we're kind of focusing on the money. So the doTERRA difference is that we have a very strong product, a very high retention rate. We are the market leader in essential oils, and we lead with a wellness lifestyle. So it is about changing people's lives, and the more lives we change, the more we increase our income and our impact and our reach. That is actually the only way that we can succeed in this business, if we provide education that really is based in truth. In the middle here, you can see something really cool. And this shows a chart of doTERRA's growth within 7 years. So their first 7 years in business, they have had the same growth curve as Apple. I mean, that is incredible. We all know the mighty Apple and how their product has taken the world by storm. doTERRA is exactly on par with them when it comes to how quickly they're spreading. And you can see this curve, this sort of green curve is doTERRA, and that little graph around it is Apple. And we are still in this very rapid increase in customers, but also wellness advocates. So if you are actively enrolling, then you know this, that every few days, the number that you will get as an ID for the person you're enrolling, it just jumps and jumps and jumps. So when I enrolled, my ID is 631414, and that was 4 and a bit years ago, 5 years ago. we are now at almost 7 million customers. So back then it was about 600,000. So it is just rapid, explosive growth all around the world. But that's not the only cool thing about doTERRA, that we're the market leader and we've got high retention and, we're just kicking ass with what we're doing. But a huge part of doTERRA and the doTERRA difference is the caring, and that doTERRA is about improving lives, and not just the lives of the people who are using their product, but also the people who are sharing their product, which is us as the wellness advocate. And on top of that, the people who are farming the plants that become the product. So the entire chain of people involved in doTERRA needs to benefit. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but they really are about creating win-win situations in everything they do. We'll talk more about the Healing Hands Foundation and the co-impact sourcing and how they do that in a second. Just give me one moment. I think Adam just came home. No, he'll come in when he can, I'm sure. Moving along. Oh, I think I can hear my baby. Yes, I might have to quickly go and take care of him. So here's a photo of the head offices in Salt Lake City, which are stunning, surrounded by mountains. We already said that doTERRA is the leader in the oil industry. There's almost 7 million customers worldwide, and that is rapidly growing. We are on par with Apple, and definitely important to mention, it is a debt-free billion-dollar company. So a lot of billion-dollar companies out there have huge amount of debt behind them. doTERRA is debt-free. And on top of that, they are not on the stock market, which means they don't have shareholders that could ask them to compromise their quality or their practices. And they never will be on the stock market. They have ensured us this over and over again. And as I shared before, the doTERRA difference is the integrity that is woven throughout the entire process. I'm going to briefly go, and here we are back again. Thank you for that, ladies. So as I shared before, doTERRA's vision is all about changing the world through essential oils. But when the 7 founders had the idea for doTERRA, they did not just want to do that for the end consumer. So one of the biggest guideposts for them was to create the highest quality essential oils in the world. Completely pure oils that everyone could rely on, and where results would be more predictable, because the problem with poor quality is that your results are just not predictable. On top of that, they obviously can be harmful to the body. But they also wanted to change the world through oils in the sense of bringing people out of poverty. And a lot of these oils come from areas where there is nothing but the farmland. Another vision of doTERRA is to properly empower people with tools for well-being, and we talk a little bit more about their healthcare disruption that they are about to start with a new project called Prime Meridian. That's going to get very interesting for our world of healthcare. But a huge part of their vision is to support emerging countries in actually having a place in the world, because at the moment they often don't. Poverty can be so isolating and completely cutting people off from having the tools they need to just get by. So part of their vision was, how do we do that? How can we bring people out of poverty with essential oils? Part of their vision is also an oil in every home. And there was quite a lot of talk about this when we went to the convention. This is not just the homes of the people who are privileged, like all of us on this call, because whether we want to know it or not, we are all highly privileged. But they are also looking at ways of how they can get oils into the homes of the underprivileged, and they are more than enough out there. And what's driving their vision is to create freedom from suffering. And that on all levels. So obviously we know that these oils support us on all levels of our being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, but also relieving the suffering that is put on people through financial strain. So whether that is people who have to manage healthcare bills because their health is poor and they're not able to get out of it, or whether that is people who are stuck in a situation or a job that they don't enjoy. So freedom from suffering is their driving force with everything they do. We'll talk a little bit about co-impact sourcing in a minute, but as I shared before, it's to provide a hand up for emerging countries rather than a hand out, which is what we often have with charities. They simply give money away, and not that that is wrong, but the problem with that is that we need to empower people to come out of poverty themselves and not just hand them money, which usually just increases the poverty. So one of the things I read about a while ago was that a lot of charities make things worse if they provide just food, because then often what happens is that then there's just more children, because all of a sudden there's food, and so there's just more children that come into the world into the same poor situation, so the cycle continues. Whereas co-impact sourcing is actually about providing a hand up for people to get out of poverty themselves through being able to contribute and to make a living of their own. And there's lots of amazing, very touching stories around that. When we went to convention, Hugh Jackman was there as a special guest, and what he said was that good business is good for everybody. And if it's not good for everybody, it's not good business. And I think that is something that Doterra actually lives by. They also have the Healing Hands Foundation. That is a huge part of their vision. And so on top of the co-impact sourcing, they have created a foundation that supports those areas, but also other areas all around the world. And we as wellness advocates, we can be part of creating these causes. So if there is something that is really close to our heart that we want people to receive, we can couple with our Diamond Upline and bring these ideas to Doterra and actually start our own Healing Hands projects. And there's some really amazing projects all around the world, and I'll share a little bit more about that later. Another thing that Doterra is doing right now is disrupting our broken healthcare system. They are building right now the very first integrated holistic hospital in Utah, and they have announced 4 more locations all around the states, and they will be announcing another 12 all around the world in the next few months, which is exciting. And again, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that in the next couple of slides. And as I shared as well, part of the vision is providing an opportunity where anyone can have a thriving business. And the only deciding factor is our commitment to it. So we'll start with the co-impact sourcing. There's a great website that you may or may not know yet. It is called source2u.com. And you can go on that website and learn more about the co-impact sourcing projects. You can also learn a bit more about the purity and the potency of the oils. And the very cool thing, and this is something that sets us apart from every other essential oil company out there, is that we can go on that website, we can enter the code that you find on the bottom of your bottle, and you can get the exact testing profile for the oil that you're holding in your hand. So you'll get the entire chemistry and everything about this oil, which takes quality control to a whole new level. Wow, it's just starting to pour here. I might have to lose. I think Adam and Breezy just came home on their bikes, and I think they got totally drenched. I can hear her in the background. So check out this website. It is amazing. And if you are a wellness advocate and if you get the question, you know, what sets you apart from other companies, it is the quality, hands down. Oh, there's a wet little person. The next thing I want to share with you is the Healing Hands Foundation. Again, there is a great website that you can visit. If you just Google Healing Hands Foundation, the website will come up, and you will be able to look at all the different projects that they have all around the world. If you're a wellness advocate and you're diamond or above, you actually get to go on quite a few trips where you see these projects and you get to help out. And I specifically remember Jessie Reimers, one of our double diamonds, talking about going to a Healing Hands project in Kenya, which was all about water, and she said she just bawled her eyes out when she saw that all of a sudden there was a well provided, where before the villagers had to walk for hours to get the water, and they were getting their water from a crocodile infested source. So there were people losing their arms and getting, injured just getting water. So there's a lot that happens through doTERRA, which is not just in our lives. Here we go, another part of the Healing Hands Foundation, which I think is brilliant. 100% of the donations to the Healing Hands Foundation goes to the causes. So doTERRA is covering all administration costs, which is amazing. Most other charities out there spend about 50% of the money that they receive just on administration. So that's paying people to sit on the computer to organize, the goods and the things that people need for the aid. None of that happens with the doTERRA Healing Hands Foundation. If you donate, that money goes straight to support these causes. And these are some of the areas that they focus on through Healing Hands and co-impact sourcing. They're providing microloans to people in those countries so that they can start their own businesses, that they can get for example, tools that they need to start farming, or that they can get a small loan to start a shop and get some of the products in their shop. They are focusing a lot on feminine hygiene. There is some amazing projects called Days for Girls, where there's education and support around the monthly cycle, because in a lot of these countries, women don't know what that means, and they are often isolated through their monthly cycle. A huge part of the money also goes to disaster relief. Hello. And one of the things that I heard when we were at the global convention, this was in Guatemala after there was a volcano that erupted, and the locals, after they were asked, what is doTERRA providing for you, the locals were saying, by the time the politicians were still preparing the papers, doTERRA was on the ground already, for first line of help and supporting people. So they're just really amazing at just doing what is needed to help and cutting out a lot of the things that get in the way. If you want to have a good cry, Google Operation Underground Railroad. It stands for OUR. And this is a non-for-profit organization started by a guy called Tim Ballard. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. And it's all about anti-human trafficking. So there's over 2 million children each year in sexual slavery worldwide. There's actually some really crazy statistics, like 10,000 children each year disappear out of foster homes in the UK and end up in situations like that. So it's a huge underbelly of suffering that is going on around the globe when it comes to human trafficking. And OUR is a non-for-profit that is dedicated to literally going in, having undercover missions and getting these children out of these situations. There's a huge human trafficking cartel in Haiti, which is where we get our vetiver essential oil from, and they have arrested dozens of child pornography and human trafficking mafia bosses and locked them up. So there's some really amazing things happening. I urge you to check it out. And in Australia, if you purchase a hope oil or a rose hand lotion, all of the profit goes to the Healing Hands Foundation. In the USA, if you purchase a Hope oil, all of the profit goes straight to Operation Underground Railroad. And as I said, everything you donate goes straight to these causes. And then there's other community projects. So we even have a Healing Hands project, or a few actually, here in Australia, and they're all around the world. So not just for emerging countries. Here are some of these projects. So I spoke a little bit about Haiti. They are supporting a new generation of midwives in Haiti. Then there's mobile health clinics in Madagascar. There's the Kenya water project that I spoke about before. And then they have provided geodesic homes for refugee camps in Greece. So they really have their finger on the pulse globally about what is needed. The next thing I want to share with you, and this is something new, and it's called Prime Meridian. And I was actually sharing with Adam about a year ago that I had, because now it's actually already happening, I had a dream of somehow being part of the creation of integrated hospitals. And I remember saying to him, I don't know how this would ever happen, because we'd have to be billionaires to be able to fund this. So when Doterra announced that they are creating integrated health clinics, I started crying, because it's so part of my dreaming. And they have obviously seen that there's such a big gap between the alternative health industry and what's happening mainstream when you go into a hospital. And I've experienced this myself. I've been in hospital not that often in my life, but a couple of times, and I find it quite shocking what happens when you walk in there, and how all of a sudden there's very poor food, and there is often the situations that we're in are often not supportive for healing, and all that is focused on is the symptoms. So Doterra knows that that is an issue and has come up with a way of actually disrupting the healthcare system. And this is what they are using as their guideposts. So affordability is huge. So they say, we combine proven allopathic and integrative care techniques to make sure you have the highest quality care. Accessibility to doctors, get unlimited access to all of our services with one simple monthly payment. So people can opt in and then get unlimited services. So they can have chiropractic, they can have acupuncture, they can talk to a GP, they can have scans, and so on and so forth. And simple streamlined access, they can book an appointment without worrying about the copay. And telemedicine enables them to have appointments over video where it is appropriate, which I think is amazing. So it's a much more patient-based care. This is one of the advisory board doctors. This is Dr. Brannick Reeks, and he says, our board-certified physicians deliver integrative medicine which combines allopathic and complementary holistic medicine. We work with our patients to not only treat disease, but to improve their health and quality of life, to develop a comprehensive wellness plan unique to them. So how amazing would that be, hey, if you go to a GP and they actually sit down with you and go, hey, what are you eating? And are you moving? And are you having a supportive emotional environment? All of these things that get completely overlooked. And most of us, definitely on this call, and probably you if you're watching this video, we are already very aware of our health and well-being, but most people out there are not, and they don't know what to do to get out of their health situations often. So this is going to be a huge game changer for the medical industry. And here you can see what they offer. So traditional approach and the holistic approach. So the traditional approach would be things like broken bones, surgeries, medications, injections. And the holistic approach would be essential oils and more, nutritionists, acupuncture, chiropractors. And this, I love this because this gives an example of what this means for the patient. So have a look here under the medical condition. The first one that is mentioned is asthma. The traditional approach would be to get an inhaler. The complementary approach would be to use an essential oil blend, and you can probably think of which one that would be. And the integrated approach is to have your inhaler on you, but also use essential oil blends.
And get an adjustment too.
And get an adjustment, of course. Then the next would be diabetes. The traditional approach is to have insulin shots. The complementary approach is to have nutritional counseling, and obviously integrated is to have both. And high blood pressure would be traditional, would be medication. Complementary would be managing lifestyle, and integrated would be medication and managing lifestyle. So it really is a no-brainer. And as soon as you look into it, I personally feel like, well, why is this not the norm yet? But somebody's got to do it, right? And somebody who will do this needs to have a lot of money behind them. And luckily now Doterra, because of their huge success, has the money behind them to get these things happening. The other thing that is amazing for us as wellness advocates is Doterra is very wise. And obviously they have a huge heart, but they also have a very big brain, and they know what they're doing. And they know that by having these integrated health centers all around the world, they will be able to gather a huge amount of data on what happens when you use things like essential oils with certain conditions, and that will help us immensely. And it will help what we call the early majority, and this is people who are not necessarily into alternative therapies, but they make up a huge amount of consumers, and we call them the skeptics, right? So you tell them about essential oils and they come back at you with like, oh yes, smelly hippie stuff. When data is gathered like this in hospitals around the world, this will provide the basis upon which we can then stand and go, hey, if you're skeptical, that's cool. Just look at the data. There is stacks out there. So this is going to be huge for us as wellness advocates. Very empowering. Here you can see key benefits for members. They get the best of both worlds. They have no billing insurance. So I think this is really huge for America, especially because their healthcare system is so poor. Telemedicine, so they can speak to their doctors from the comfort of their home. There's no copay. All of the primary visits are already included. There will be a doctor-patient relationship. How cool is that? Not just 2-second appointments, but actually half-an-hour appointments where they can really focus on the patient. And there will be a patient portal where you can schedule your appointments, but also you can access your own medical records. And that is huge. Anastasia was saying at an event we did a couple of weeks ago, in Australia, you actually often have to go to court to get access to your medical records. And even then, it can still be denied with GPs. You don't get access to your records at hospitals. So,
is that true, Susie?
In some instances, yeah, it is.
There we go. So that's going to change the game in the healthcare industry, which I think is amazing. And as this rolls out, it'll be worldwide. For now, it's in the States. As they're getting approval from all the regulatory bodies worldwide, it'll be everywhere in the world. Here, the next part is really about taking a moment to think about what our level of play is. So using the products for ourselves, we are obviously changing our own life, and we get to live a wellness lifestyle with amazing products that work and that support us through all kinds of situations. Or we can focus on changing our lives, but also sharing this with others around us. And as you know, if you do that, then you get your own products, at least to a part paid for, if not completely paid for, and then some. Or you can choose to build a business with Doterra and then completely changing your future by building a passive income business, which will allow you to continue to receive whether you are there the entire time or not. The opportunity, which is what we'll be talking about now, and this is also taken from the Build Guide. And the question is, are you ready for financial freedom? And most of us would be eagerly nodding our heads when we hear that. And down at the bottom, we see a few questions. And the main question is, where are you? Are you hauling buckets, as in, are you trading hours for dollars? Are you limited on advancements and earnings? Are you limited in your freedom? Oh, sorry, I just skipped. Here we go, skipped a page there. And are you maybe building someone else's dreams? Or are you building a pipeline where you're creating true and lasting residual income, where there's no limits on advancements and earnings, and where you have freedom to choose your schedule, and where you get to build your dreams? Now, that obviously doesn't mean that we're not working, but we get to choose when, how long, and with whom we are working. And maybe I'll hand it over to you for a second if you want to share.
Yeah. So I've been running a practice now. This is actually the first week of the 8th year since I opened the practice. And I've been in practice for 12 years. So I've been trading my hours for dollars. And I've been hauling buckets. And I really like this model. The more I get into it, the more I get excited about it, because I can see the expansion through it. And it's almost like this sacred geometry model that has infinite expansion. And the infinite expansion doesn't mean infinite expansion of the amount of work that we have to put in with it. Whereas I've found that running a practice, as it's gotten bigger over the years, so has the workload, so is the stress, so is the management, the technicalities, now the computer systems, and just everything seems to keep getting more complex, and there's just more moving parts, more stuff. So I can really relate to this from personal experience. And I think back to, if I had put the amount of work over the last 7 years into a multi-level marketing platform, let's just say Doterra, then I can only just begin to, I don't even think I could imagine, like it'd be clearly presidential diamond and whatever else on top of that for the amount I've put in. So I think that it's just such an amazing model, and it's got such longevity to it. And I think as long as we're patient, and that a lot of us can get caught up with the multi-level marketing that, it hasn't happened after 3 months, and I've used up everyone on my list, this doesn't work. But that's crap. There's just constantly, I went on a holiday last week, and the surf guides at the resort turned to be just absolutely amazing people, this couple, and they're really interested in it, and they've enrolled with the Home Essentials kit. So I went on holidays, and these guys have enrolled, and we're staying in touch, and I think there's a pretty good chance they're going to really look at the opportunity, and they could be superstars. So that doesn't happen when you're running a traditional business. So it's just such a brilliant model. I love it. So, and plus, you get to go on holidays, and you don't. With my current, when you're hauling buckets and you're running a business, if you take a week's holiday, it's not that you just don't get paid, you actually lose money. So, because you have to pay bills and not get paid. So, there's a lot of good positives to it. So,
yeah, there so is. And
those buckets take their toll after year after year.
They do, they get heavy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, on the next couple of slides, but also just the investment that people have to put into starting up your own traditional bricks and mortars business. You are at least, if you're keeping it very cheap, looking at 10, 20 grand and more. I think on average, people are spending $50,000 to $70,000 getting a new business up and running. That is huge. With doTERRA, your investment, if you're going for a diamond kit, is a couple of grand, but you can actually start with $150 and have a business where doTERRA is taking care of all of the intricacies, and they're storing the stock for you, and they're sending it out for you, and so on and so forth. So for us, it's a no-brainer, and we're really excited that this is part of our future now. Here, if you are wanting to launch, there's 3 main areas to launching. One is living the wellness lifestyle. So that means we have to be a product of the product. That means we have to use these oils. We have to have our own experiences with them, because that builds our trust and our confidence in the oils. So for me, one thing that I wasn't doing for a while is I wasn't using the Lifelong Vitality Pack. I was taking other supplements. And then one day I realized, hang on, I have to actually be a product of the product. And I started taking the Lifelong Vitality Pack, and I've been absolutely loving it. So we have to use these products in our own lives so that when we share this with others, it comes from an authentic place. We're not just wanting them to get something that they don't need, but we're sharing with them from our heart solutions that we're using in our own everyday. When we share with others, we start by writing our list. And that means sitting down, writing out at least 40 to 50, ideally about 100 people that we can think of that would love doTERRA. And that can be either people that you can think of that would love the product, or people you can think of that would love the opportunity, or both. A lot of the times it's a bit of both. And then 3 is about launching our business. And when we launch, we pick our pace. We choose a rank, we pick our pace, because really you can do this business at any pace. The more you put in, the more you get out, obviously. But you pick your pace, you pick a rank, and you launch your business. There's these beautiful guides, the Live, Share, Launch, and Build guides that you can get through your back office, but you can also find them online on the doTERRA website. And you can fill them in. So they have the list, they have all kinds of ideas on how to invite, how to share the oils. So if you haven't read the guides yet, please get yourself the guides and read through them one by one. All right, getting started. So for those of you who are already sharing the oils, you know this, but if you're watching this video and you're thinking about getting started, anyone can do this business. There is no degree needed. There is no certain age. You don't have to be a woman or a man. You can do this no matter who you are. But it is certainly not for everyone. I think that's a big difference, right? Anyone can do it, but it's not for everyone. There's a certain type of person that will naturally do well in doTERRA. And from what I've seen it is people who love people and who are in contact with people. Because if you don't like talking to people, it makes it harder. And there is some people in doTERRA who are really successful who don't necessarily love talking to people. But in general, it will be so much easier if you love talking to people. If you already have a following, if you already have exposure, if you are seen as an inspirational person, you are naturally going to do much better. And this is why we see some people starting doTERRA and hitting diamond rank within 10 months. That is often the case if they already have a group of people who look up to them as a solutions provider. It takes a powerful choice to create something different. And this is the one thing I see over and over again as well. Some people can have all it takes. They can have the exposure, they can have the following, they can have all of the personality traits, but if they don't make that powerful choice, it won't happen. And if someone who has no exposure and no experience makes a powerful choice, it will happen. So that really is what it comes down to. And it is a real business, and we have to treat it like that. As I was saying before, the initial investment in this business is much, much smaller, and that's why it often doesn't get the attention and the focus that it deserves. So we have to kind of come up with that ourselves, and we've been doing a lot of work on putting in structure on how we do this business. When we do certain things, we have to map out our week. We have to schedule times to put into doTERRA. Otherwise, it can feel like we're doing a lot of things without any outcome. Do you want to add anything? You just interrupt me if there's not something you want to add.
Sure. Well, and that was the first call that I did at the beginning of the month, was organisation over entropy. And that call, unfortunately, was a strange internet connection, but I put together that information based on a lot of when I got really organised, which was about 3 to 4 years ago with life, and I think that was forced upon us with Rosie, just having to get organised as we became new parents. And the things I put in that video are just the absolute baseline things: to have a calendar sorted, to have a to-do list sorted, to have and I even went into a brief thing about bank account structure. So you just got this, system in place to be organised. Without that, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have entropy in life. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also always good to have a chat with your upline about structure, because there are certain activities within doTERRA that we call the rainmaking activities. So those are the activities that turn up the flow in our business, and they are very worthwhile activities. And then there's activities that we call the thumb-sucking activities, where nothing really happens. And we can be doing something, but we're just going around in circles, just wasting our time. So if you're unclear on what to do, have a chat with your upline. If you are not a wellness advocate yet, you obviously have to become one to be able to do this business. If you are a wholesale customer, you need to upgrade to a wellness advocate account to receive commissions. You have to have your own LRP set at 100-point minimum and never under. And this also goes for the next LRP you have scheduled for the following month. I've seen this a few times where people have had their 100 PV order within the month, but then their next loyalty order is set to, let's say, 80 points. Then they will still miss out on commissions. So you have to make sure you always keep that order at 100-point minimum if you're wanting to receive commissions. Otherwise, you can order whatever you like. As I said, connect with your upline. Let them know you're wanting to build so that you can have these conversations, and reach out. If you're needing information, reach out. There will be someone who is willing to support you. And if it's not in your team, reach out cross lines. The doTERRA culture is very open. We are supportive of anyone. If you are in Australia, order your local Empower Kit. This is where you have all your teaching sheets and you get your 10 5ml wild oranges. This also has the overview over the kits. It has the wholesale pricing list, and it has the sheets where people can put in their details to order their kit. If you're in Europe, order the class in a box and then practice teaching. So if you've never taught a class or a one-on-one, get a family member or sit down in front of the mirror and read from the sheet. These sheets are so amazing. You can literally be just reading from the sheet and passing open bottles of oils around, and you've got a class.
And you don't have to do any more than that.
No, you don't. You can keep it really simple.
Yep.
Listen to Go Pro by Eric Worre. Now, this is the Bible for network marketing people. It's about 2.5 hours long, and he talks about all the ins and outs of this industry, because it is an amazing industry and there's lots of things we need to learn if we're wanting to be successful. Like in any industry, there's things we have to learn. Otherwise, we're just kind of, stabbing in the dark. Read all the guides, the Live, Share and Build guide to get started. And then once you've got going, there is more guides, and they are called Train, Multiply, and I think Lead. But when you're getting started, just read Live, Share, Build. You can either read them online on the doTERRA website, or you can order them off your back office. And make sure you go to events. Go to classes, educate yourself online. There's always classes where we are. If you're not able to go there in person, look at some online classes and stay connected, because this is a big field and I learn something new every single time I go to a class, because we pick up new things as we learn. Some things just go straight through. I think we retain about 20% max of any sort of event. So keep staying engaged in classes.
The path to mastery is always through being an avid learner, constantly learning.
Agreed. And if you want to be a great teacher, you have to be a great student first. Whoops, where are we? Here we are. Yeah, make your list and start reaching out. So sit down, write down everyone you know, everyone you can think of who would love the oils, and then don't just call every single person or write everyone a blanket email, but really sit with each person individually and feel into whether the time is right to contact them right now. And then also, how would you do that? This is a relationship business. It's always more important to have a strong relationship than to sell an oil kit. This is just common sense, but I think sometimes people forget that. always nurture the relationship over wanting to make a sale. I've had so many people who joined my business after a year and a half, 2 years, even now, that initially said no. So never jeopardize the relationship over, wanting to get them started. Of course, you know things that they don't, but that's okay. They might just need a bit more time. Here, this is the overview of the average earnings, and I won't go into any sort of detail because that's way too much for this call. But you can see that the different ranks have a different way of where the money comes from. So Elite is the very first rank. It's an average of about $300 a month. Then it goes up to Premier, which is an average of about $750. Silver, an average of just over $2,000. Then Gold, about $4,500. Platinum, over $9,000. Diamond, around $16,000. Blue Diamond, around $37,000. And Presidential Diamond, around $110,000. Now, these are monthly averages. These are not annual earnings. Some people, I think that's US. Some people think those are annual earnings, but these are very accurate averages. Of course, the individual earnings could be higher or lower, depending on the size of your organization. And there's 4 different ways in which we receive money. You can look this up in more depth, but just know there's 4 different ways in how we receive, and the color coding shows you which part of it you're receiving. So this is something to get you dreaming. And of course, the first couple of ranks are really just there to pay for your own product and to pay for your wellness lifestyle. And then as you're going up, it's about supplementing your income. So we don't ever suggest for anyone to quit their normal job until they're at least silver or gold. And then after that, that's where you're multiplying your income, and you're creating a passive income where you don't, as Adam was saying, have to always work harder to create more income, but you actually get to receive a passive income.
And when you set up a system that is going to duplicate itself, then it's just going to keep growing and expanding. It's not just going to have to mean a huge amount of extra input for every inch of the way.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And at the same time, we have to be honest with, especially if you're wanting to make this your main income, it is a full-time commitment. There's no way anyone is going to get to Presidential Diamond with 2 hours a week, hey? So that's it from us. And now it's your turn. Go forth and oil them up. Thank you, guys. I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for hopping on. Anything you would like to ask or add?